When city bus driver Marcus Webb saw the same small boy sitting alone at the Route 47 stop for the third consecutive loop through his afternoon route, checked his watch, and realized 3 hours had passed since he'd first noticed the kid, then pulled over and discovered the 7-year-old had been abandoned there, with nothing but a backpack and a note saying, "Mommy would be right back," Marcus made a phone call that would transform a routine Tuesday shift into an emergency rescue operation. The call went to his childhood friend Dylan Chains Morrison, road captain of the Steel Brotherhood Motorcycle Club, who would arrive with 5 brothers within 18 minutes and turn a bus stop in South Phoenix into a protected zone while they unraveled the truth about why a first grader had been sitting alone for 3 hours waiting for a mother who was never coming back. This is the story of how one observant bus driver and a brotherhood of bikers proved that children abandoned by blood family can be claimed by chosen family, and that sometimes the most important route a city bus can take is the one that circles back to check on a child nobody else remembered to protect. The Tuesday afternoon heat in South Phoenix was the kind that made asphalt shimmer and turned metal bus stop benches into instruments of torture. Marcus Webb had been driving Route 47 for the Phoenix public transit system for 11 years, long enough that he knew every stop, every regular passenger, every quirk of the route that wound through working-class neighborhoods where people depended on public transportation because cars were luxuries they couldn't afford. He was 43 years old, a big man with dark skin that showed gray stubble along his jaw, and the kind of patient demeanor that came from spending a decade navigating traffic while managing passengers who ranged from grateful commuters to aggressive drunks to confused elderly riders who needed extra help. Route 47 ran a loop that took approximately 55 minutes to complete, starting downtown and winding through South Phoenix neighborhoods before circling back. Marcus had started his shift at 1 in the afternoon and was now on his 4th loop, meaning it was approaching 4:30. The bus stop at the corner of Baseline Road and 24th Street was unremarkable. Just a bench under a ramshackle shelter that provided minimal shade, positioned in front of a strip mall that housed a dollar store, a laundromat, and a shuttered storefront that had been empty for years. Marcus had stopped there dozens of times today like he did every day, letting passengers on and off, barely registering the location beyond its function as a point on his route. Except today, something was different. Today, there was a kid sitting alone on that bench, and Marcus had noticed him, because noticing things was part of staying alert during long driving shifts. The first time Marcus had stopped there, around 1:30 during his initial loop, the boy had been sitting with his small legs dangling off the bench, wearing a backpack that looked too big for his slight frame. Marcus had assumed the kid was waiting for someone, maybe a parent running late to pick him up from school, nothing unusual enough to warrant concern. Plenty of kids waited at bus stops for rides. The second loop through at 2:30, the boy was still there. Same position, same backpack, but now Marcus noticed details he'd missed before. The kid was young, maybe 6 or 7 years old, small and thin, with light brown skin and dark hair that stuck up in cowlicks. He wore shorts and a t-shirt with some kind of superhero logo, sneakers that looked worn, and that oversized backpack. He wasn't playing on a phone or reading or doing any of the things kids did while waiting. He was just sitting there with a stillness that seemed wrong for someone that age, his small hands gripping the backpack straps, his eyes watching every car that passed like he was looking for a specific vehicle. Marcus had felt a flicker of concern during that second stop but pushed it down. Maybe the parent was just running late. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation. He'd finished the loop, started the third, and by 3:30 when he pulled up to that same bus stop again, the boy was still there. 3 hours. A 7-year-old had been sitting alone at a bus stop for 3 hours, and that flicker of concern became something cold and certain in Marcus's gut. He pulled the bus to a complete stop, even though no one was waiting to board, put it in park, and engaged the hazard lights. He stood up from the driver's seat and called back to his handful of passengers, "Folks, I need 2 minutes. There's a situation I need to check on." Nobody on the bus objected. They could all see the small child sitting alone, and Marcus stepped off onto the sidewalk. The heat hit him immediately, that late afternoon Phoenix intensity that made breathing feel like inhaling fire. The boy looked up when Marcus approached, his face showing wariness but not fear, like he'd been taught to be careful around strangers but hadn't learned real terror yet. Marcus knelt down a few feet away, making himself smaller and less intimidating, keeping his voice gentle. "Hey there, buddy. My name is Marcus and I drive this bus. I've seen you sitting here for a while now. Are you okay? Do you need help?" The boy's eyes were huge in his small face, brown and wet like he'd been crying earlier but had stopped. His voice when he spoke was quiet and careful. "I'm waiting for my mommy. She said she'd be right back." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "How long have you been waiting, son?" The boy looked confused by the question, like time had become elastic and meaningless during his wait. "I don't know. A long time. It was after school. She brought me here and said to wait on the bench and she'd be right back. But she's not back yet." "What's your name?" Marcus asked, still keeping his voice calm and gentle even though alarm bells were screaming in his head. "Noah. Noah Castillo. I'm 7 years old and I go to Desert Vista Elementary." "Noah, does your mom usually pick you up after school?" The boy nodded. "Yeah, or sometimes my grandma. But today my mom picked me up and she drove me here and she said wait on the bench. She said she had to do something important and she'd be right back. She told me not to move, not to talk to strangers, just wait right here. So I'm waiting." Marcus looked at this 7-year-old who'd been sitting alone for 3 hours because his mother had told him to wait, and he was following instructions with the kind of obedience that came from being a good kid who trusted adults to keep their promises. "Did your mom say what she needed to do? Did she say where she was going?" Noah shook his head. "She just said it was important and she'd be right back." She was crying. "Mommy's been sad a lot lately?" His small face showed the worry of a child who'd been carrying adult problems without understanding them. "She said everything would be okay, but she seemed really upset." "Do you have a phone? Can you call your mom or your grandma?" "I don't have a phone. I'm too little. Mom says maybe when I'm 10. Noah's voice wavered slightly. "I wanted to ask someone to use their phone, but Mom said don't talk to strangers and don't move from the bench. So I didn't." Marcus felt rage and heartbreak warring in his chest. This kid had been abandoned at a bus stop and had followed his mother's instructions so perfectly that he hadn't even tried to get help because she'd told him not to talk to strangers. The obedience that should have kept him safe had instead trapped him in a dangerous situation for 3 hours in brutal heat with no water, no food, and no idea his mother wasn't coming back. "Noah," Marcus said carefully, "I think we need to call someone to help find your mom. Is that okay with you? I'm going to stay right here with you and we're going to make sure you're safe, but we need to get some help." The boy's face crumpled and tears started falling. Is Mommy not coming back? Did something bad happen to her? What if she's hurt and that's why she can't come back? Marcus didn't know how to answer that because he suspected the truth was worse than an accident. He suspected Noah's mother had deliberately left him here and wasn't planning to return, and that was a reality that would destroy this 7-year-old's world. "I don't know, buddy, but we're going to find out. First thing, we need to get you out of this heat and get you some water. Have you had anything to drink today?" "I had a juice box at school. Mom gave me one in the car, but I finished it. I'm really thirsty now." Marcus made a decision. He pulled out his phone and called dispatch first, reported the situation, requested police response to the bus stop for an abandoned minor. Then he called someone else, someone he'd known since they were kids growing up in the same rough South Phoenix neighborhood, someone who'd chosen a different path than conventional society, but who had the kind of resources and reach that bureaucracy didn't. "Dylan," Marcus said when the call connected. "It's Marcus. I need you and some brothers at Baseline and 24th immediately. I've got a 7-year-old who's been abandoned at a bus stop for 3 hours. Mother dropped him off after school and told him to wait, never came back. Kid's alone, scared, and I've got a bus full of passengers I need to finish my route with. But I'm not leaving this kid here by himself." The voice on the other end was rough and immediate. "How many you need?" "As many as can get here fast. Police are coming, but this kid needs people watching him right now, and he needs water and food and probably medical check. 15 minutes. We're rolling." Dylan's voice carried the absolute certainty of someone who'd spent 24 years in an MC, learning that when a brother called with an emergency, you moved immediately and sorted details later. The call disconnected, and Marcus focused back on Noah. "Buddy, I just called some friends of mine who are going to come help keep you company while we wait for the police. They're going to make sure you're safe and get you something to drink. They might look a little scary because they ride motorcycles and have beards and tattoos, but they're good people and they help kids. Is that okay?" Noah nodded, his small face showing exhaustion and fear, and the beginnings of understanding that something was very wrong with this situation. "Are you going to stay too?" Marcus looked back at his bus where passengers were waiting patiently, understanding that driver compassion sometimes meant delays. "I've got to finish my route because people are counting on me to get them home. But my friends are going to stay right here with you until the police come and figure out how to find your mom. You're not going to be alone anymore, Noah, I promise." A woman from the bus, an older Latina who'd been watching the interaction, stepped off and approached. "Driver, I heard what you said. I can stay with the boy until your friends arrive, if that helps. I'm a grandmother. I work with kids at my church. He shouldn't be alone even for 15 minutes. Marcus felt gratitude wash over him. "That would be helpful, thank you." Her name was Rosa, and she sat on the bench with Noah, speaking to him in gentle Spanish-accented English, asking about school and his favorite subjects and his backpack, while Marcus went into the dollar store and bought water bottles and granola bars with his own money. When he came back out, Noah was telling Rosa about his teacher and his best friend Miguel, and how he was learning to read chapter books. The normalcy of the conversation was a thin bandage over the wound of abandonment, but it was something. Marcus gave Noah water and a granola bar, and the kid drank and ate with the desperate hunger of someone who hadn't had anything for hours. 14 minutes after Marcus's call, the sound of multiple motorcycles announced the arrival of the Steel Brotherhood MC. 5 Harleys pulled into the strip mall parking lot with a thunder that made heads turn all along Baseline Road. The riders wore black leather vests marked with patches identifying them as a brotherhood that had been riding together for over 2 decades. Dylan Chains Morrison led them, a lean man in his early 40s with a shaved head, a thick beard going gray, and arms covered in tattoos that disappeared under his vest. Behind him came Bear, Wrench, Smoke, and a younger prospect called Rookie, all of them looking exactly like what they were. Men who'd chosen the road over conventional society, but who understood that brotherhood meant showing up when someone needed you. They parked their bikes and approached the bus stop with careful awareness that 5 large bikers could be intimidating to a 7-year-old. Dylan knelt down in front of Noah with the same instinct Marcus had used, making himself smaller and less threatening. "Hey there, son. I'm Dylan, and these are my brothers. Marcus called us to come make sure you're safe while we wait for the police. You doing okay?" Noah looked at these massive men in leather, and something in his face showed he recognized strength when he saw it, the same way kids throughout these stories had recognized potential protectors despite unconventional appearances. "You're Marcus's friends? The ones with motorcycles?" "That's right. We ride together, we help people together, and right now we're here to help you." Dylan pulled out his phone. "Noah, we need to find your mom. Do you know your grandma's phone number or anyone else in your family we could call?" "I know my grandma's number. Mom made me memorize it in case of emergencies." Noah recited the number with the careful precision of a child who'd practiced it, and Dylan dialed while the other bikers positioned themselves around the bus stop, creating a protective perimeter that said very clearly that this child was now under their watch. The call to Noah's grandmother revealed the situation's full tragedy. The woman, Elena Castillo, answered with immediate alarm when a stranger asked about her grandson. "Where's Noah? Where's my daughter? Is something wrong?" "Ma'am, this is Dylan Morrison. I'm with some friends at a bus stop on Baseline Road. Noah's here with us. He's safe and unharmed, but he says his mother dropped him here after school and told him to wait. That was approximately 3.5 hours ago. She hasn't returned and the boy doesn't know where she went." The sound Elena made was part sob and part curse. "Dios mío, she did it. She actually did it. Where are you? I'm coming right now. Don't let anyone take him. Please, don't let anyone take my grandson." Dylan gave Elena the exact address while keeping his voice calm despite the grandmother's rising panic. "Ma'am, we're not going anywhere. Police are on their way and we'll stay with Noah until either they arrive or you do, whichever comes first. Can you tell us what's going on?" "What do you mean she did it?" Elena's voice shook with anger and grief. "My daughter Maria, she's been struggling. Depression, substance abuse. I've been trying to get her help, but she won't listen. 2 days ago, she told me she couldn't do it anymore, that being a mother was too hard, that Noah deserved better. I thought she meant she needed a break, needed help. I didn't think she meant abandoning her son at a bus stop like he was trash she could throw away. Her voice broke completely. I'm 15 minutes away. Please, please don't let anyone take him before I get there. We won't, ma'am. He's safe with us. Dylan disconnected and looked at Noah, whose face showed he'd heard enough of the conversation to understand that something was catastrophically wrong with his mother, that the waiting wasn't going to end the way he'd hoped. The boy's eyes were swimming with tears he was trying desperately not to shed, his small body rigid with the effort of holding himself together. Bear, the largest of the Steel Brotherhood members at 6'5" and nearly 300 pounds of muscle, moved closer to the bench and sat down carefully beside Noah. He pulled something from his vest pocket and held it out. It was a small toy motorcycle, the kind you could buy at a gas station, still in its packaging. My nephew's about your age, Bear said in a voice that was surprisingly gentle for someone his size. I keep these in my pocket to give him when I visit, but I think you need this more than he does right now. You like motorcycles? Noah took the toy with trembling hands, his tears finally spilling over. I've never been on one. They're really loud. Are they scary? They can be loud, but they're not scary when you're riding with someone who knows what they're doing. When you're bigger, if your grandma says it's okay, maybe we can take you for a ride. You'd like that? The boy nodded, clutching the toy motorcycle like a lifeline, and Bear stayed beside him, providing the kind of solid, protective presence that seemed to calm Noah's visible panic. The other brothers maintained their positions around the bus stop, creating a shield that said very clearly that this child was claimed and protected now, that anyone who tried to remove him or harm him would have to go through 5 bikers who'd shown up for exactly that purpose. Phoenix PD arrived 12 minutes later, 2 patrol units that pulled up with lights but no sirens. 4 officers emerged, and the lead officer, a woman in her late 30s with sergeant stripes named Gutierrez, took in the scene with experienced eyes. 5 bikers surrounding a small child, an older woman who appeared to be a good Samaritan, and a city bus that had apparently stopped its route for an emergency. She approached Dylan first since he was clearly the one in charge. "Oh, I'm Sergeant Gutierrez. We got a call about an abandoned miner at this location." Dylan explained the situation concisely while Gutierrez listened and took notes. Marcus Webb's observation over 3 loops spanning 3 hours, the mother dropping Noah here with instructions to wait, the grandmother's revelation about Maria's struggles, and apparent intentional abandonment. While they talked, another officer knelt beside Noah and began the gentle process of getting the child's account directly. Marcus had stayed after finishing his route, parking his bus in the strip mall lot and returning on foot, because leaving before knowing Noah was safe felt wrong despite having already connected the boy with help. He provided his statement to a second officer, detailing exactly what he'd observed during each loop, the timestamps, the child's unchanged position, and growing distress that Marcus had recognized even from a moving bus. Elena Castillo arrived in a Honda that she parked badly and abandoned without caring, running toward the bus stop with her arms already outstretched. Noah saw his grandmother, and the careful composure he'd been maintaining shattered completely. He scrambled off the bench and ran to her, his small voice breaking on a cry that was part relief and part betrayal. "Grandma, Mommy left me. She said she'd be right back, but she didn't come back, and I waited and waited like she told me, and she never came." Elena caught her grandson and sank to her knees right there on the hot sidewalk, holding Noah while both of them sobbed. "I know, mijo, I know. I'm so sorry. This isn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Grandma's here now and I'm not leaving you. You're coming home with me and you're safe now." Sergeant Gutierrez gave them several minutes before approaching gently. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Gutierrez with Phoenix PD. I need to ask you some questions about Noah's mother and the situation here." Elena stood slowly, still holding Noah's hand like she'd never let go again, and answered every question with the weary resignation of someone who'd seen this coming, but hadn't been able to stop it. Maria Castillo was 28 years old, single mother, had been struggling with depression and prescription drug addiction for the past year. Elena had been helping with Noah as much as possible, often keeping him overnight, covering expenses when Maria couldn't work, trying to get her daughter into treatment programs that Maria refused. 2 days ago, Maria had told Elena she couldn't handle being a mother anymore, that Noah would be better off without her. Elena had thought it was the depression talking, had tried to convince Maria to check into a facility, had offered to take Noah for a few weeks to give Maria a break. But Maria had refused everything, and now, apparently, she'd decided abandonment was her solution. "Do you know where your daughter might be now?" Gutierrez asked. "Do you have any way to contact her?" "I've been calling her phone since you called me. It goes straight to voicemail." Elena's face showed anger mixing with worry. "I don't know if she turned it off or if something worse happened. I don't know if she's planning to hurt herself or if she just ran away to start over somewhere without her son. Either way, my grandson was left alone at a bus stop for 3 hours in this heat because his mother decided he was too much trouble." Gutierrez's expression tightened with professional anger at child abandonment, but her voice stayed controlled. "Ma'am, we're going to issue a welfare check bulletin for your daughter. If she's in crisis, we'll try to get her help. But right now, our priority is Noah's safety." "Do you have legal custody or guardianship?" "No, Maria has full custody. I'm just the grandmother who helps out." Elena's face showed fear that she was about to lose access to the child she'd been protecting. "But I can take care of him. I have a house, I have income, I can provide everything he needs. Please don't put him in the system. He's been through enough today. We're not taking him into state custody if there's family able to care for him," Gutierrez assured her. "But we will need to document this formally, and Child Protective Services will likely be involved to establish temporary guardianship while we locate your daughter and determine her fitness as a parent. For tonight, Noah can go home with you, but expect a CPS caseworker to contact you within 24 hours. The relief on Elena's face was profound and immediate. "Thank you. Thank you so much." She looked at the Steel Brotherhood members who'd maintained their protective perimeter throughout the police interaction. "And thank you for staying with him, for making sure he wasn't alone and scared, for calling me and keeping him safe until I could get here." Dylan stepped forward, pulling a card from his vest pocket. "Ma'am, this has my cell number and the clubhouse number. If you need anything while you're dealing with CPS and the courts, if Noah needs anything, you call us. Steel Brotherhood takes care of kids in our community. He's not alone in this, and neither are you." Elena took the card with trembling hands. "You don't even know us. Why would you do this?" "Because Marcus called and said a kid needed help," Dylan said simply. "That's all we needed to know. We don't let children suffer alone when we can do something about it. That's what brotherhood means." Marcus approached and knelt beside Noah one more time. "Hey, buddy, you remember what I told you? About calling someone when you need help? You did exactly right waiting where your mom told you, but I'm glad you let me help when I checked on you. You're a brave kid, Noah." Noah looked at Marcus with the kind of trust that came from someone who'd proven themselves in crisis. "Will I see you again? On the bus? Absolutely. I drive Route 47 every Tuesday and Thursday. You'll see me around the neighborhood. And Noah, I want you to remember something important. What happened today wasn't your fault. Your mom is dealing with problems that have nothing to do with you being a good kid or a bad kid. You're a great kid and you deserve people who show up for you. Your grandma's going to do that, and if she needs help, we're going to make sure she gets it." Over the following weeks, the situation unraveled exactly as Elena had feared and expected. Maria Castillo was located 3 days after the abandonment in Tucson, staying with a boyfriend she'd met online, with no immediate plans to return to Phoenix or reclaim her son. When CPS interviewed her, she signed over temporary guardianship to Elena without protest, claiming she wasn't mentally stable enough to parent, and Noah deserved better. The honesty was brutal, but it cleared the legal path for Elena to become Noah's primary guardian, while the courts processed permanent arrangements. The Steel Brotherhood MC stayed involved in ways that surprised Elena and the CPS caseworker assigned to Noah's case. They showed up at Elena's small house in South Phoenix to do repairs she couldn't afford, fixing a broken air conditioner that was critical in Arizona heat, replacing rotted boards on her porch, helping her convert a spare room into a proper bedroom for Noah. They brought groceries when Elena's budget was stretched thin, covering the unexpected costs of full-time guardianship. They included Noah in community events, teaching him about motorcycles in age-appropriate ways, giving him the kind of positive male role models that his absent father and struggling mother had never provided. Dylan, in particular, became a regular presence. He'd stop by on weekends to check on Elena and Noah, to make sure they had what they needed, to take Noah to the park or to get ice cream while giving Elena breaks she desperately needed. The relationship wasn't about replacing family or overstepping boundaries. It was about being the community support system that kept struggling families from collapsing completely, about understanding that one abandoned child could heal if enough people decided to care. Marcus continued driving Route 47 and made a point of waving to Noah whenever he saw the boy around the neighborhood. Twice, Elena and Noah rode the bus just to say hello, with Noah sitting in the front seat pointing out landmarks and telling Marcus about school and his grandmother and his new room. The trauma of being abandoned was still there, requiring therapy that CPS helped arrange. But Noah was healing in an environment where he felt safe and claimed and valued. 6 months after the bus stop incident, Elena invited Marcus and the Steel Brotherhood to Noah's 8th birthday party in her backyard. It was a small celebration with neighborhood kids, Elena's church friends, and the unlikely family that had formed around a child who'd been left alone at a bus stop. Noah wore a t-shirt that Bear had given him showing a motorcycle and the words, "Brotherhood means showing up." And he spent the afternoon showing his friends the toy motorcycle collection that the Steel Brotherhood had been steadily contributing to with every visit. When it was time to cut the cake, Noah asked if he could say something first. Elena nodded, and the boys stood in front of the assembled guests with the seriousness of someone who'd survived something terrible and wanted it acknowledged. "I want to thank some people," he said in his small, clear voice. "Thank you, Grandma, for taking me to live with you and for loving me even when my mom couldn't. Thank you, Marcus, for noticing I was alone and for calling people to help me. Thank you, Dylan and Bear and Wrench and Smoke and Rookie, for coming to the bus stop and staying with me until Grandma got there. And thank you everyone who helped make my new room and brought groceries and came to my birthday." His voice wavered, but he pushed through. "When my mom left me at the bus stop, I thought maybe I wasn't important enough to remember. But then all of you showed me that even when family forgets you, other people can choose to care about you. My teacher says that's what community means, people who aren't related but who help each other anyway. So thank you for being my community." There wasn't a dry eye in that backyard. Elena was crying. Marcus had to look away and wipe his face, and Bear pulled out his phone to record the moment, because this was the kind of thing the Steel Brotherhood needed to remember about why their community work mattered. Dylan stepped forward and rested a hand on Noah's shoulder. "You got that exactly right, kid. Brotherhood isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them, and you've got a whole lot of people who are going to keep showing up for you. You remember that when things get hard, when you miss your mom, when you wonder why things happen the way they did. You've got people watching out for you now, and that's not changing." The legal situation eventually resolved, with Elena being granted full permanent guardianship. Maria signed away her parental rights in a process that was heartbreaking but necessary, admitting she wasn't capable of being the mother Noah deserved. She entered a long-term treatment program in California and sent occasional letters that Elena kept for Noah to read when he was older, but she didn't fight for custody and didn't attempt to re-establish a relationship. The abandonment was complete and final. Noah processed the loss through therapy and through the support of people who'd chosen to care about him. He had moments of grief and anger and confusion that were normal for a child who'd been deliberately left behind. But he also had Elena's steady love, Marcus's friendly consistency from the bus route, and the Steel Brotherhood's ongoing presence as proof that people existed who wouldn't forget him, who'd show up for school events and birthdays and the everyday moments that built a childhood. Years later, when Noah turned 13, he asked Dylan if he could attend a Steel Brotherhood community event as a volunteer. The club was doing a school supply drive for kids in South Phoenix, the same kind of kids Noah had been. Kids from families struggling with poverty and instability and all the forces that made childhood harder than it should be. Noah wanted to help pack backpacks and distribute supplies because he remembered what it felt like to need help, and he wanted to be on the giving side now. Dylan brought Noah to the event and watched this teenager who'd been a 7-year-old, abandoned at a bus stop, work alongside bikers and community volunteers, to make sure other kids had what they needed for school. Noah was taller now, more confident. The trauma of abandonment still part of his history, but no longer the only thing that defined him. He'd become a kid who helped other kids, who understood from personal experience that community support could mean the difference between surviving and collapsing. At the end of the event, Noah approached Marcus, who'd come to volunteer on his day off from driving routes. "I wanted to thank you again," he said, with the self-awareness of someone who'd spent years in therapy understanding his own story. "For noticing I was alone that day, for not just assuming someone else would handle it, for calling people who could help, and for staying until they got there. My therapist says lots of adults would have convinced themselves it wasn't their business or that I was probably fine. But you didn't do that, and it saved me." Marcus pulled the kid into a hug. "You saved yourself by being smart enough to accept help when it showed up. All I did was pay attention and make a phone call. You're the one who had to be brave enough to trust strangers when your mother had just betrayed that trust. That took real courage, Noah." But Noah shook his head. "You taught me something that day. You taught me that the world has people in it who notice when kids are alone and scared, people who care enough to stop their day and get involved even when it's inconvenient, people who will call their friends to come protect a stranger's child. That lesson helped me heal because it proved my mom leaving wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was her failure, and your response proved that other people saw value in me even when she didn't." The story of the bus stop abandonment became part of how the Steel Brotherhood understood their mission in South Phoenix. It wasn't just about visible motorcycle presence or charity events or community rides. It was about paying attention to vulnerable people in everyday spaces, noticing when children were alone longer than they should be, being willing to mobilize immediately when someone needed protection. It was about understanding that their phones could become emergency response networks, that 5 bikers showing up to surround a scared child sent a message about community protection that official systems often couldn't match. Marcus never forgot his 4th loop through Route 47 on that Tuesday afternoon, the moment he recognized that 3 hours had passed and the small boy was still sitting alone. He'd made the decision to stop the bus, to check on a child he didn't know, to call friends who could provide the kind of immediate protective presence that bureaucracy couldn't mobilize. That decision had created ripples that extended years beyond the initial intervention, that had given Noah a chance to heal in an environment of chosen family rather than institutional care, that had proven one person paying attention could stop a child from slipping through society's cracks. Elena would tell anyone who asked that her grandson was alive and healthy because a bus driver noticed and cared enough to act, because bikers she'd never met chose to protect a stranger's grandchild, because community formed around vulnerability when people decided that abandoned children deserved immediate response rather than delayed bureaucratic processing. She'd become a vocal advocate for public transportation workers, receiving training in recognizing child abandonment and trafficking, for creating rapid response networks that could mobilize protective adults before official systems engaged, for teaching communities that children alone in public spaces for extended periods deserved attention and intervention. Share this story if it reminds you that children sitting alone in public spaces sometimes need adults to notice their prolonged presence and unusual stillness. Subscribe for more stories proving that paying attention to patterns over time can identify abandonment before it becomes tragedy, that having networks of people willing to mobilize immediately for child protection matters more than official credentials, and that chosen family can heal wounds that blood family creates. Comment and tell others about the importance of noticing when the same child appears in the same location across multiple hours, of trusting the instinct that says something's wrong with extended solitary presence, and of having friends you can call who will show up immediately when a vulnerable person needs protection. Your awareness matters because child abandonment often happens in plain sight, in public spaces where dozens or hundreds of people pass by without recognizing that hours of waiting means nobody's coming back, that obedient stillness often masks growing terror, and that the difference between rescue and system failure can be one person deciding that checking on a stranger's child is more important than staying on schedule. Every adult willing to notice extended solitude, to stop and verify a child's safety, to call protective networks into immediate action becomes part of the solution that keeps abandoned children from spending hours or days alone before official intervention, that provides immediate human connection in moments of betrayal, and that proves to traumatized kids that strangers can become protectors when blood family fails to show up.